Thank you again for joining us in AJ in 8. I'd like to start with a quote that was told to me by one of my greatest heroes. I was in the 5th grade and he looked down at me and he said, "Son, shoot for the stars, because if you miss, you'll still be in heaven." Fast forward to last week, I was with my son, who is also in the 5th grade, and we were talking about what his papa told me, and we deliberated, and my son, who is a much more intelligent 5th grader than I was, comes back to me and says, "Dad, I think I like my version better." And I was like, "Really? What is that?" And he said, "Go big or go home." So I'll join how this ties into our topic this morning, which is microgrids. And the question that was posed for this edition is, what is a microgrid? Now, according to the Department of Energy, a microgrid is a local energy grid with control capability, which means it can disconnect from the traditional grid and operate autonomously. So that's kind of like my dad's version of his quote. It's experience, it's wisdom that is given. But my son's version is who I am, a simple person. So I look at what is a microgrid as it relates to a normal person, and I'd say it's energy produced on site, energy stored on site, so say solar and batteries, energy that is controlled so that if the grid or the utility ever shuts off the power, whether it be on accident or intentionally, that it allows the lights to stay on. So that was, kind of the overarching theme for my conversation when I was on stage at the largest solar and energy storage conference in North America last year. And since that time, I've been on stage every month all around the country. And 2020 was booked solid until these stay-at-home orders came into place. So when we talk about microgrids, the first question that I always think about is people are always wondering how new are microgrids. This is the new and latest thing that everybody's talking about. But what we don't realize is that microgrids have been around for a while. According to Pike Research, the first microgrid was put into place in 1955 in a refinery in Indiana. And if we go deeper, the first person that ever put a microgrid together was actually Thomas Edison. In 1882, when he was building his Pearl Street station, he had to cobble together everything that what we know fits the criteria of a modern day microgrid. So we talk about what's the pros and cons, what's the challenges and opportunities of a microgrid. And I think the biggest thing that we look at, the first thing that we look at is complexity, right? We're talking about advanced engineering. We're talking about knowledge of building and fire codes and, designs, and being able to have equipment, technologies, communications for different things working together cohesively to not only talk to each other, but also talk to the building, as well as talking to the utility grid as a whole. So you're talking about long times to be able to implement these. You're talking about designing them, engineering them, integrating them. You're talking about commissioning these, systems. So along with the complexity, we also deal with the fact that it's really costly. So these are the two biggest things that we have seen with microgrids: the complexity and all of the things associated with it, as well as the cost, the high cost of integration. Now, the opportunity or the benefits are the things that are most important, especially when we look at the 3 things that I care about. Keep the lights on, make sure that my ice cream doesn't melt. Number 2, save money. And number 3, if I'm lucky, can I make money? And you can. When you dive a little deeper into this, the smart people will go ahead and say, well, it also improves operations and stability of the electric grid. It reduces the congestion of the grid and peak loads and all that stuff, which is great. There's a myriad of benefits to having a microgrid in place. But why does it matter? Well, until recently, microgrids were largely a novelty. It was focused on hospitals, say government buildings, military campuses, and university campuses. But COVID-19 has kind of, with our sudden shift to work from home, it created a big conversation about residential microgrids and the need for resiliency. So before we jump into the resiliency conversation, I want to first touch on the thing that was most important to me was, can it save me money? And living in Hawaii, cost of electricity is expensive. I didn't realize by moving to California, nobody told me that there's a competition between California and Hawaii to see who could charge more for electricity. So electricity costs for me, my family, and all of those people living in these places are pretty high. So a microgrid can definitely reduce, if not almost eliminate, our charges for utility costs. It also, if you have the right equipment, it can actually earn you money, because now I'm generating power at a lower cost from the sun. I'm storing power so that when the utility needs that power, they can go ahead and buy it from me. People hate being sold, but they love to buy. So in this case, I've got power that's stored and I'm ready to sell it to them when they need it most. So that's the ability for me to save money and make money. Now back to the important word here. Resiliency. And that's the ability to keep the lights on, to keep the drinks cold, to keep the ice cream nice. This is really important because in California, to help prevent power lines from sparking wildfires, the utilities have been given permission to shut off the power grid. So these are called public safety power shutoffs, and local and state officials are concerned about how these shutoffs will affect both elderly, special needs people, and this is a real scenario. I have sleep apnea. If the power shuts off in the middle of the night, not only is my wife scared because she thinks a bear is snoring next to her, but there's a real big chance that I may not wake up tomorrow. So, the other thing is homeowners who own solar systems, they assume that they're immune to shutoffs. But unless they've got the proper equipment, just like everybody else in California, they're going to get shut off as well. So what do we do with all of this, right? The responsibility to protect families and communities that we hold dear is all of ours to bear. It really is. And we need to learn about microgrids, talk about microgrids to our bosses, to our, energy policymakers, to our legislators. We need to be able to get people to implement more microgrids to protect families, communities, and businesses. Go get more information. Go to microgridknowledge.com. It's the largest white paper database that you can find on microgrids. Thank you to our sponsors at Instant On. And when power is a priority, insist on Instant On. We hope to see you again next week on AJ and 8. Aloha.